So I've just been talking about us being invisible, how Native Americans in this country, and especially in Virginia, are invisible, silent people. That people and this state and this country has been built on our burial grounds, on our ancestral village sites, with no consideration for us, and no recognition as yet. As of today, there is no federal recognition for any Virginia tribe, not Pocahontas' tribe, not Powhatan's tribe, and not the Siouan-speaking Monacan tribe. There's no federal recognition. And so I urge everyone, if you can go to a site called VITAL, which is the Virginia Indian Tribal Alliance for Life. You can go to their website, or you can go to the Monacan website, or any of the tribal names that I gave you. If you put those in Google, they'll take you right to the tribal website. We are in a fight for our life, for our recognition of our people by the federal government. It's easy to forget because if it's not your life, this is my life. These are my people. This is my history. This is my dream for the future of my people. And so I urge you to write your congressman. Every congressman will have to vote. We're trying to get recognition through an act of Congress instead of going through the cumbersome BIA process, which can take 200 years. And I don't have 200 years. So we're trying to speed up the process because we think it's long overdue. It is 2008, and what was it, 1607 when John Smith first came and met Powhatan and Pocahontas and all the Indians, and we're still not recognized. So urge your congressman, write to them, ask them where they stand and how they feel about it. Virginia doesn't even have a commission on Indians.
What?
We have a Virginia Council on Indians out of the governor's office, which I'm a part of, which has no authority and no power, and is just an advisory board to the governor about Indian affairs. We've started an economic development committee through our tribe, and one of our contacts was with the Mushash tribe of Alabama, and they are the Lower Creek, part of the Lower Creek. And we were surprised to find Alabama has a commission on Indians. I mean, they have, if you go to their website, they have, different categories you can go to for business development, for women's business, for events, for tribal sites, for history, for genealogy, and all those things are maintained on a state level, for the people, which I think is wonderful and admirable, and Virginia has nothing of that sort. There's no scholarship program, there's no housing program, there's no health program, and our people are disadvantaged because until 1968 we had to attend a little log cabin schoolhouse, right, and you could only go to the 7th or 8th grade. So that was all the opportunity of education that my mother and her sister and the people of their generation had. My generation is the first to be able to graduate high school and hopefully go on to college. The problem there becomes we are people who believe that we are in those mountains deliberately, that God placed us there, just like the rocks and the trees and the creeks, and we're all part of the pattern, and that you are rooted there. That's where our ancestors are buried. That's where we perform our rituals, our weddings, our funerals. Everything happens there. And so you feel a sense of permanence. I mean, I have a 12,000-year history that led me to this day, to this place. And we have to tell our children now that you have to leave this place and go to college and become educated to function in America, in this world. There is no place for us to be independent. We don't have a reservation. Everybody has to buy their land just like everybody else in America, and the tribe has done so. We are purchasing tracts of land as we can because we want everybody in America to understand that we can't change. We understand we can't change everything, and you can never go back and undo what's been done. But we don't want to fully assimilate into American society. Your the American dream of a house and 2 cars and 2.5 kids and all that, all this, that's not my dream. That's not the dream of our people. We are happy to live on much less, to live a simple life and not have the complications and the worries that fast pace. We look at people who live in cities and who race around never accomplishing anything, doing many things and never accomplishing anything, and we wonder, why do you do that? Which is the same attitude, the reason we weren't enslaved, because we didn't understand, why on earth would I work for you when I have things to do for myself? And beating me with a whip, I do rituals of endurance. So that would not force me to work, and so it was an unknown concept to do that. Not to say that some of the people didn't get caught up in that. Every person was a target, every non-white person in Virginia, in the southeast United States especially, was a target and a prime candidate for slavery. But among our people, that's not really a part of our history, because they just refused. Yes.
Would you mind taking some questions?
Not at all. I prefer that.
I was always curious about how it was that the Cherokee decided to assimilate to such a degree when they were given the opportunity, that they took up slavery, that they had African slaves on, and that they imitated the plantation system of the white man. Mm-hmm. And I was always curious as to why it is. I mean, of course, they were trying to survive. But
yes. So often throughout history, I guess, we imitate our oppressors. We believe that becoming strong and standing strong, representing ourselves in the world. We have that problem today with some of the Virginia tribes. The eastern tribes, I'm not going to name anybody, but some members of some of those tribes have assimilated so finely into Virginia, Washington, Richmond society, that they are afraid to offend legislators. When I talk about, hey, let's march on Washington. Let's take, we don't have 1 million Native Americans in the country, but 1,000 people looks like a lot of people. Let's march on Washington and raise our voice and exert our rights and stand for what we want. And, but we don't want to offend the legislators, they say, because many of them have government jobs, or someone in their family does, and so they have assimilated. They look Indian, and they say Indian, and they call themselves Indian, but they are white people. They are Americans, and that's how they live. And they become angry when I tell them. I think our people believe that education without culture is a dangerous thing. A fine example is a sociology group study done by Sweetbriar College in our area, where they took notes of how the people lived and what they ate and how they worked, and they wrote this awful, awful book called Mongrel Virginians. And it is about the Monicans. And I had to pay $25 to the Sweetbriar Library to even access the filth. And they keep promising, every time I say that in front of a Sweetbriar alumni, they tell me they're going to get my money refunded, but they still owe me $25. It was awful, and I cried, and I was so upset, and I screamed, because I had heard whispers and rumors. All my people knew about this book, because the study was done about the time of the Racial Integrity Act, 1923, and a lot of our people had to leave here and go live in Maryland. We have satellite communities in New Jersey, in Maryland, in Tennessee, West Virginia, because our people were not legally allowed to be married and go to school here in Virginia. Virginia is really behind on lots of civil rights laws. And so some of those people have grown up and they don't know anything about their Indian heritage, their Native American heritage. And some of them come back and they want to know some. Some just want to pretend to know. And I study the traditional ways of our people, the traditional religion, the meanings of the dances. I dance. I will be dancing at the Upper Mattapani powwow this weekend, tomorrow and Sunday. and we do sweats. I participate in all the rituals that we do, and we understand that we can't revive that lifestyle from 500 years ago. But things that are important that keep us grounded. It really keeps me, when I go into the sweat and I'm naked and I'm suffering and I'm sweating and I'm praying, there's no room or need for pretense. When we go to church, we're so distracted sometimes by what other people have on, or how they're singing, or how they're praying, or how they look, or what we think we know about them. And in the sweat, you don't have any of that. You're in pitch black darkness, naked, sweating and crying the way you came into this world, and so you feel very close to God. And I have a claustrophobic problem, so when I go into the small space, once they close it up, I tell myself that I'm sitting in God's hand and the whole universe is around me, and that I'm not in that space, that I'm in God's universe. So that's the kind of I have to tell myself that. So it's a beautiful thought, and I don't get so, I don't hyperventilate and do all those things that can happen if I'm aware that I can just reach out on every side and touch somebody or something, the walls of that sweat.
I like that concept.
Yeah. So we just had our 16th annual powwow this past weekend, which was a roaring success on Saturday, and I invite everybody to come up next year. We have it the third Saturday of May every year, and it's an opportunity for people of other tribes, young people especially. I have an ulterior motive, I have to tell you. They all laugh at me. The other tribes laugh at me because I'm always trying to think of events for us to get together, because I want our young people to meet each other and marry each other and make Indian babies. That is my plan. And so they all laugh. They're like, well, Cheryl, why do you want to do this? You know why I want to do this. So we plan retreats. We plan retreats. How else would we do it? I grew up believing that my tribe was the last Native American tribe in America. We did. We thought we were the last Indians in America, and if we kept really quiet, we could live peacefully till we died, and nobody would miss us when we were gone. And that is the truth. And all the things that were happening at Wounded Knee and with the AIM movement was not shown on local TV. Do you remember ever seeing that on the news or anything when we were kids? You know, so it wasn't shown in our area. And so we didn't know. And we had no contact with the eastern tribes. We didn't really, we started making contact after state recognition in 1988. And then a couple of years ago, I was fortunate enough to be nominated to be a delegate for the tribe to go to England when we were celebrating the Jamestown 400 thing, which was such a farce on one hand and such a gift on the other. The opportunity to go to England was a gift to me. And, you know, I'd never been anywhere, and a couple of the people had never been on a plane, so it was very exciting for us in that way. And we were respected there. We weren't really treated like royalty or anything, but we were respected. They expected us, they hosted us, and they were very kind and nice to us. And when we got back here last year, but we didn't meet the Queen when we were in England. We met the Queen in Richmond. She requested that the Virginia Indians be on the steps when she came to visit Richmond, and not 1 second of that was aired on television. And we had stood on those steps in full regalia for over 2 hours, lined up the Capitol steps waiting for the Queen to come, and she was delayed, and she came in waving, and she walked over to the crowd, and she waved, and everybody cheered like she was their Queen. You know, and we'd been up there dancing and carrying on, you know. And then the Queen and Tim Kaine walked between us and went into the building and had tea, and all the Indians were out there on the steps again. So Virginia trots us out when they want us to represent their Indian heritage and their Indian residents.
So
but
parade,
the rest of the time, they just want us to be really quiet and not make waves.
In reference to that event, I was hopeful and was not the Jamestown, it brought a lot of pressure, I thought, for federal recognition, and was there not some movement at that time? And what
There was a
happened?
markup. There was a markup of our bill right before that, because we had all said, and I had said loudly and numerous times, if we don't get federal recognition, we're not doing Jamestown. We are not going to keep parading out here. You know, the government is using us to do this. So they did a markup like the week before the Jamestown event. So we all went in really excited thinking, this is our time. You know, this is our time. And the president came and they made us all, the Secret Service made us all stay in the tents behind the stage. So we never saw the president. And then they made everybody stay where they were for so long after he left that by the time we came out to do our program, everybody had gotten up and gone. And we had practiced for a year, the dances and the songs and the things that we had done. So it was just one more disappointment in a long line of disappointments. And so you don't let that get you down. You don't let it stop you from what your goal is. I want my people to be a sovereign nation, independent from the American government.
Have you worked at all with Jim Webb since he's been elected?
Yeah.
How is he?
He recently came out in support of our bill. John Warner was the snag for that. If John Warner had been on board or would openly say that because in the beginning when we talked to him personally, he is very nice and in support of federal recognition. But to translate that into being active, you know, to promoting the bill, it hasn't happened. You have to understand, we understand that he is at a point in his life he is worried about his legacy. What legacy will he leave? I think it would be a beautiful legacy to leave 8 recognized tribes. But I'm speaking from one side of that that debate. I don't know how he could think it would be a negative thing. You know, I don't.
But how's Webb? Webb is coming
He's
out
been
of-
in support. Moran has been in support. And Warner says that as long as the gaming issues, which I resent that implication that because I'm Native American I want to open a casino.
Right.
I really resent that. Frank Wolf started that, and when he was head of the Appropriations Committee, and I really thought it was the most racist remark, and everybody just let him keep on saying it, you know, over and over and over again. We're the only people in the country that it's okay to insult and offend, and you don't know how many times I'm asked, how much Indian are you? When's the last time you asked a black man how black he was? Who would do it? Nobody does that. But it's okay to ask me that. My father is white and my mother's Native American. If anybody's interested. But, you know, it's an insult to me. It's an insult to my people for all the struggles that they've had to endure. Yes.
Yeah, I don't mean to pry, but this dialogue of the blood count, the blood quantum, the blood quantum politics surrounding Indigenous people. But I once heard, and I only know a little bit of this, that there's numerous African American folks, Virginian African Americans, who have Indigenous blood, but their Indigenous blood is never, for example, if they ever try to claim some type of Native privilege, say if they're applying for school or some type of reward system or something like that, their African Americans are less likely to be viewed as Indigenous, and sometimes they find opposition from the tribes themselves, that the tribes themselves don't recognize them.
It is true. That is true among the people. It is unfortunate, but it is true among some of the people. But the truth is, the Nottoway tribe are facing that very fight right now. And they, in one of their presentations to the VCI, to us, they said that some of you found refuge among white communities with white people, and so your blood is mixed with theirs. And we found refuge among the African American community, and so our blood is mixed with theirs. Who is more Indian? And, as far as I'm concerned, no one is more or less than the other. We have a problem with some of the Western Indians who always make comments. I have a friend who works in Charlottesville, and she always makes comments about how fair we are and how we don't look Indian and how we're different and all that. And my answer to her was that the Southwestern Indians have so intermarried with the Hispanics who've come from the south of them that it gives the appearance of being full blood, but is not always the truth. And that ended that conversation. But I really don't have any problem with anybody's mixed blood. My point is, we are all, America is a melting pot, and it happened to Native Americans as well. The only reason that many of us have full bloods or the people is because we were so isolated, physically, socially, economically, everything. I remember our people, we intermarried among each other, and my grandma made us keep track of our third cousins, everybody that we were related to up to the third cousin. She would make us remember who that were. We had, even if we didn't know them, we had to remember who those people were so that you didn't marry your third cousin. Of course, by the time I came around, all the cousins were gone, and there was nobody to marry. So there were no Native American guys my age in the tribe locally. Now, probably in Maryland or Tennessee or some of those places there would have been. So I'm really excited. I'm certainly beyond my childbearing time, but I'm excited about meeting all the Eastern tribes and getting to know them better. That to me, that is the most important thing that happened with the whole delegation to England trip, was that we had to have these meetings every month to coordinate the trip, the events, the dances, the songs, and all the things that we would do. And we formed friendships with those people because everybody that was there represented the leadership of their tribes. It was the 5 to 10 players of the tribe, those people who are trying to make things happen. Tribal council, assistant chiefs, and all that. And so we all bonded while we were over there. And we sat, it's so funny, the hotels in England were not air conditioned. When we were planning the trip, everybody had said that they would, except me, had said that they would stay with host families. But my name is Bear Woman, and bears snore, so I wanted a room. They offered us hotel rooms, and I took one. I'm like, yeah, I'll take one. So when we got there, it was humid and hot, and everybody was milling around, and they had told us that, it was the hottest week they'd had in 15 years, of course, and most humid, and that most of the homes didn't have air conditioning. So everybody jumped on the hotel bus. Okay, so we get to the hotel, and you walk in the room, and there's a small window and a little standing fan, blowing. If you could have seen our faces, we looked. Because in America, even the poorest person has a higher expectation than a hotel room. Even the cheapest hotel has an air conditioner. And Americans, we have it so easy, even though we don't realize that. Even poor people in America have it easier than those outside. We always assume that other people are like us, and they're not. It's one of the reasons that we are loved or hated in the world, because people are not like us. We have so much, and we waste so much, and we take for granted so much, and we assume so much. So in good Indian fashion, we did not complain. We went into and stayed in the rooms, and we found the one air-conditioned place in the hotel where we could stay. For reasons of physical comfort, we spent all our evenings in the pub. And that's how we started telling our stories, over a few Carlsberg beers. And we found that we all, most of us had grown up poor, that almost everybody had a story of racism and prejudice to tell, that everybody had a dream and a vision for the people and where they wanted them to go, and that we were all there trying to hang on to these last meager scraps of our culture and our tradition. That's all we have today. When we gather them together, they look so meager. They seem so meager. The little books, the few books and videos and things that we have accumulated from 8 tribes, And So we are desperately hanging on to our lives, to our history, to our ancestry. Yes.
I wonder, Sharon, too, that I just thinking about to me, what's almost a hopeful sign in terms of tribes and nations, the Western, different examples of identity and of resurgence and stability. Has that been a helpful to you in terms of, I think there's a much more consciousness of, first of all, the horrors that were, I think last week they talked about Canada making an apology for the boarding school experience. And I would hope that some of that claiming identity amongst other tribes has been helpful to you, or is Virginia just so bad that...
Well, Governor Kane, Tim Kaine, he apologized to the Native Americans. It didn't affect my life in any way, except that, it's real nice of him to do that.
Right, so what's really substantial? Yeah.
Yeah, because right now we need substantial evidence of everybody's acceptance of us, and we need tangible help. Everybody's good feelings and goodwill, that's wonderful. And we get that. We get that. When we go and do events and people come up to you and they just want to touch you, they think you're magic or something, they just want to, can I touch that? I'm like, yeah, go ahead. And a little boy in England, he said, what is that? And I'm like, hair? They're just fascinated. But mostly the English kids were worried about what the cost of everything was. They want to know what the cost of things is. So Indian's very commercial idea to them. They saw us come. We took George White Wolf, our ceremony man. He's also a crafter. He makes things and he sells them. He's the Mr. Haney of the Monacan tribe. And he took all his goods, his wares over there that Pam and I had to lug through the airport for him to England. He started selling them, and it just fascinated all these children. So they wanted to know how they could make these things out of rocks and sticks and bones and make money, and furs. All right.
What do you think of the book that Peter Haupt wrote on the Amherst Island,
Indian Island in Amherst County? It was the first documented history of our people. Now, it has some gaps. And like most first works, there are ways that it could have been a little better, ways that it could have been expanded on. But it's been a really, we were so proud to see that book, to see that symbol, Indian Island, Amherst County, know that book was about us. And they were calling us Indians for the first time. I had not been called an Indian by my community. There were other words they used.
Can you share with them?
Sure I can. The most hurtful one, most popular one in our area was issue, which was supposed to mean that you were half black and half white.
Issue black or issue white?
I don't know. Well, it came from the free issues of the slaves of the plantations in Richmond and places east. Were given land near us at Peters Hollow, and we allowed them to live among us because we think that all people are people, and that God doesn't see the color, only we do. And so they lived among us, but they are still black today, and we are still Indian today. They did not try to assimilate into our culture, and we did not try to assimilate into theirs. We worked the same farms and orchards together, and it said that into the 1970s, the farmers would have to set up 3 tables to eat, so that the white people ate at a table, and the black people ate at a table, and the Indians ate at a table.
Where was that?
That was in Amherst County.
In restaurants?
No, that was at the farms and orchards where they worked.
Oh, where they worked?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh. And what else were you called?
Just half-breeds. Either or. Our birth certificates say either or, more or less, other,
Oh my
Isha,
God.
Negro, everything except Indian. Everything. And that went on until 1972. Walter Plecker was the first registrar in the state of Virginia, and he took it upon himself to alter our birth certificates. and he would make notes on the backs of the birth certificates and say that this person is claiming Indian heritage, but is actually mulatto or Negro or whatever. Because starting about 1750, the first census that was taken, they started calling Indians mulattoes and Negroes and names other than Indian in Virginia. And what Walter Plecker was trying to establish in the Racial Integrity Act, legally acted on, was that there were no Indians in Virginia, and that you were either white or you were colored, and it didn't matter if you were Spanish or Indian or what you were colored if you weren't white. And we lived through that. I mean, that's the life that I know. That is the kind of prejudice that I understand. And when we went to school and started going to the public schools in the early 60s, all the way into, even into today, we have to be careful because the expectation for our children is very low. And the guidance counselors, direct them to take menial labor jobs, and not to strive to, right, and not to strive to go to college and to achieve.
Do you think there's some deep, because they wouldn't say Indian or Native American, is because in way deep down somewhere they felt guilty or jealous?
I think so. I think that most of the local people understood, ownership of land in America. There's a process. It has to be the deed has to be transferred from one to another, and some of that land was gained. It was not granted from the king, and it was not granted from the government.
Right.
They just all of a sudden owned 100 acres. And they filed it with the county because our people did not understand land ownership.
Right.
We didn't believe that you could own what you can't hold in your hand and what you can't take with you. And so a man named Edmund Branham bought 400 acres of our original land called the Bear Mountain Settlement in our area. And he tried to make a place for the scattered remnants of the Monacan people to live, to be safe, to have a place that wouldn't be invaded. Because the way it was, if you lived on the farm, on the farms that you worked, if whoever you were working for became angry with you and threw you off, then you and your family were homeless, and there was nowhere to go except to another family.
When did Mr. Bryant do that?
Mr. Branham. When was that? About 1750, I think, some early 1700s. But then our people didn't understand about taxes. See, so we lost the land through not paying the taxes on it, and nobody came out and explained, hey, y'all have to get a little money together every year and take it over here to Amherst. And so we just lived in the hills there. We hid in those hills and just tried to survive. And that's what the last 200 years of our existence has been, just trying to survive in America. We've paid a dear price for it.
But hasn't the Monacan people reacquired this?
Part of it, yes, we have. We have reacquired part of that original settlement through land purchase like every other American. Now Sweetbriar College is negotiating with us to grant us 400 acres, more acres of that.